Joining me in today's episode is Paul Bray, Technology Platform Leader, Finance and Tax at AP Maersk, as well as SAP EMEA North, Regional Vice President for Strategic Customer Program, Adrian Wolf, for a talk around how the world's most impactful transportation company has digitized and automated their end-to-end finance processes to gain a strong digital pace. I hope you're relaxed and ready for a talk around the Maersk digital finance transformation journey.
Indeed, yes, absolutely.
But before we go there, I would love to kind of turn the attention to the current market situation and the fact that we've obviously seen a lot of pressure on supply chains, but this seems to be clearing up and we seem to have more capacity, at least for the midterm. I'd be very interested to hear your perspective on that and those challenges.
Yes, indeed. Well, so over the last 2 years, of course, the pressure on supply chains have been absolutely immense, and we've had absolute logjams in ports. We've had a lack of containers in the market, and because of that, freight rates have been incredibly high, and obviously we've rode on the back of that for that 2 year period. Now things are changing, and we're seeing some of that pressure actually go away or start to go away, and it's meaning that there is going to be more capacity in the industry, and obviously it has an impact on organisations like us, because the freight rates will start to come down and our economic cycle goes into a slightly different way. And there's more pressure on us, I think, as in the words of our CFO, Group CFO, Patrick Jani. We are heading for stormier waters in 2023, undoubtedly.
Oh, interesting times ahead for sure.
Yeah, sure.
How are you thinking about addressing some of those challenges?
Well, I think the key thing is that we've had a very clear strategy since 2016 of becoming the global integrator of container logistics. So this means that we move more away from our traditional background of being a shipping company to being a provider of multimodal logistics and transportation services, and that means we developed our capabilities and our assets across a range of industries now, including rail and air, and obviously a range of services in terms of providing end-to-end solutions for our customer base, and that's something that is really important to us for addressing the typical cyclical nature of the ocean industry, and more addressing the needs of our customers and making our relationships with them stickier. So we've progressed that. We've over the last 2 years we've grown our capability outside of ocean and grown some significant business. And also we've made a number of acquisitions in these logistics and services areas to further build our capability. So we are actually really living the dream now of the global integrator strategy, which was really important to us.
So truly a fascinating journey you have embarked on here. It would be interesting to hear, because you obviously have a clear transformation strategy for your business model. Could you maybe share a little bit of the recipe with us on that?
Yeah, the recipe that stands behind it is, in some senses, we do try to think of ourselves as being a digital company that does transportation services. So the digital transformation of the business was absolutely super important to us as well. If you consider that the shipping industry was very traditional. And in some ways, I mean, we by our own admission, we have some pretty arcane ways of doing things. Some very traditional processes which are not standardised. Subject to a lot of variability, and we needed to change that. We needed to be we needed to modernise, we needed to standardise, we needed to digitise, and those were critical things for us. If I look at my own area, which is finance and tax. Traditionally, finance and tax has had to cope with a lot of problems that are created elsewhere within the organisation in terms of data quality, poor process, non-adherence to policy, and all those kind of things. And clearly, part of our finance transformation was addressing that on more of an end-to-end basis, so that we we could actually relieve the pressure on our global shared services organisation in India, which is several thousand strong, and we're basically dealing with all of those data type issues and process issues that I mentioned, through the use of that workforce in India.
So obviously, technology playing a huge role.
Absolutely.
In that business model transformation. Also looking a bit to you, Adrian.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, business models have always been changing, right? But with COVID, there has been the saying that the speed of change has never been as fast as it is today, but it will never be as slow as it is today, right? So the change is going faster and faster. And as such, the business models are also changing faster and faster. And I think that's what we see with a lot of customers. Their need to transform comes from that, but the way of transforming, right, and using technology to transform needs to give the agility and flexibility to do that at an ever constant, getting faster pace, basically, right? And I think that's kind of key as we go through this process with a lot of customers to really, if we talk about finance transformation, right, to use that potential to reimagine finance, to automate more, to be more efficient, at the same time having a leaner core to be more agile and more flexible, for example, for mergers and acquisitions, right? Using real time for better business insight at the fingertips of everybody, and kind of making finance transformation self-enabling, right? So that all business users can use it, that you don't have this huge pressure in certain parts of your business, and then use that to kind of free up your finance workforce for doing more value-adding tasks, right? And I think also in your industry, sustainability is a big thing. If you have 700 vessels, there's a huge cost attached to it, but there's also huge value attached to it, yes. Right? So I think a lot of customers are willing to pay for green shipping, and it's kind of also, bringing those together. What are the companies I need to acquire? What are the parts of the business I need to get rid of? What are the services I need to complement my business with? We've talked about those curves of an asset-intensive business, right? Where you have a huge uptake at a certain time and then a huge downtake of the business. How do you flatten and smoothen those curves with complementing it with services to make it more stable and more predictable? And I think specifically in the asset-intensive industries, that's a big change, because they've been naturally a little bit slower, right? And now, even faster on that change in supply chain disruption.
And you talked about that, right? You talked about some archaic ways of almost, right, of getting things from A to B, right?
Yes.
And I guess it really comes down to the role of technology and how it drives value in that transformation, right? And then you mentioned the real-time data insight, the alignment, but also the enabling of new services. But again, really interesting to hear your perspective on how you see that driving value. Yeah.
No, well, we're absolutely reliant on technology driving value, for our customers, and also within, being more efficient and effective within the organisation, generating greater insights about our business and our industry, to enable decision making, and all those things are really super important to us. I think if I look at the way that Maersk is transforming, I see it in a number of ways, and one of the things I think that you mentioned was really important, which was the speed of change, because you can't transform slowly, right? It's impossible, because by the time you finish a transformation, the world has changed again in 3 or 5 years' time. So speed was really important for us, and if you look at the dimensions of timescale, speed, risk and cost, then certainly the one that was most important for us over the last 3 years has been speed.
So really leveraging the digital arm to really gain much more speed into the organization.
Exactly, and we were prepared to move at a pace whereby we were prepared to take some acceptable risks, because we believe that actually changing, getting our deployments done quicker, our releases done quicker, was going to give us the opportunity to integrate acquisitions faster, and to have the digital core in place from which we can then develop greater insights. So that's been one of the key drivers behind our thinking, and I think it will be for the next 18 months really, as we progress through this transformation cycle.
It's really interesting how fundamental it is then to the change of the company, right? And I think also one of the things I guess you're working a lot with also, as we talked about previously, investing in automation.
Yes.
And maybe moving even beyond automation in SAP, we talk about becoming an intelligent, sustainable organization. So it's actually the next level
Yes.
beyond, and securing more transparency is another key word we discuss a lot across the. I guess that's also something that you've been working on, right? And how do you see the benefits of that?
Yeah, well, increased transparency was a must for us because we weren't transparent at all. We couldn't get those those see-through insights into our business. So we've had to go down this route to expose and make things more transparent to the business, so we can see where are the things that we need to change to really step up our performance. So without that, the transformation would be impossible.
So really shining a light on where the archaic processes hurt the most.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Yes. Exactly.
That's really strong. And I know some of the things you and I discussed also, Paul, was obviously as you need to build up these digital capabilities, you need to make some choices. One is, of course, some good partners, but another one is also how am I building up that capability, right?
Yes.
And we are also in a market where maybe, at least in the IT sector, I can recognize from our side, there's a bit of scarce talent. And I know you've taken a strategy of building up those capabilities in-house. So
yes.
I'm really interested in understanding your thinking behind that approach here.
Yeah, and look, for me this has been really interesting because I came from professional services background with 30 years, most recently with Deloitte, and Deloitte were our partners actually at the beginning of this journey, and they did a good job, and they helped us to get to the sort of early stages of the program which were really necessary. We couldn't have done it on our own at that point in time. That was pretty clear, but I think. And this is not limited to finance and tax. We have an aspiration to, take control of our own destiny, as it were, and to build our own capability, and to be, much more, sort of focused on delivering providing resources to our programs in-house. And so we set out on a journey, 2 years ago to start to build that capability, and we've recruited over 200 people. It's nearly 250 people now with SAP backgrounds and experience. Some of them again from professional services industry, and we built this capability now so that the release we've gone live with very recently in the last 2 weeks. It was the first one that we'd done entirely on our own, as we say, designed, built and delivered by Maersk. And the team is just super proud of what they've achieved, and rightly so. I mean, it's been a fantastic achievement, and I'm not seeing too many organisations in other industries doing this kind of thing actually. So I think it's proven to be very good. Now, obviously, we've got to sustain that, and we're probably going to have to grow even bigger to meet all the needs of what we want to do. But I think if you press me on the reasons why we've done this, I mean, some of them are economic, clearly, because organisations, consulting organisations, are good, but they're expensive as well. So with building our own capability, I think we can do more for the kind of like the same kind.
I guess that's kind of a tipping
money.
point where you're recognizing this is a lasting capability.
Yes,
we need, and
exactly.
Makes sense of it. And Adrian, I know also you work across also with a lot of large-scale strategic customers and enterprises, right? How is your perspective on this?
And important in a multitude of industries, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting what you mentioned, right? That it's kind of unique in the logistics industry. I kind of see that as a trend across many large companies specifically, right? Because they want to gain competitive edge, and one way to do this is in areas where you can gain competitive edge to insource, right? And technology plays an important role there, data plays an important role. What I think is very important, what we're seeing is it's not about insourcing functions, right? Insourcing IT, insourcing finance. No, it's about what are the capabilities that drive the competitive edge and insourcing those. And at the same time, and I think that's also where we at SAP, are kind of trying to lay our focus, defining where the borders are, right? And also defining what you want to outsource, where you do not define your competitive edge. And with our RISE offering, that's exactly where we try to help customers more leveraging the true value of the technology, also sometimes in a more operational way, and helping them run their estate. Where I think, in the retail and CPG space, there's a lot of competitive edge around digital to consumer, right? Where they're building out a lot of capabilities. But that's really what it is about. And I think that's also a question that I would have for you. Paul, right? How is that process? How is that way of working defined within Maersk? How do you define what are the capabilities you want to, upscale in-house and in-source, so to say, right? And where do you draw the line to say, hey, here is no competitive edge. Those we're trying to keep outsourcing.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's even more fundamental than that, Adrian. I think the competitive edge is one part of it, I think for sure. And we recognise that by having our own capability in certain areas, we were able to press ahead faster. The pace was the driving factor really. But some of it is also down to the fact that we really did want to have control over our own destiny, and if we saw a persistent need for capability to be in place, and by persistent I mean more than probably 6 quarters, that we would want that capability to be in house rather than to bring it in and to let other people walk away with the knowledge of what they'd developed. So it was about creating that persistent capability and knowledge, if you like, within the organisation that was really important to us.
So it's also a lot about economical factors and knowledge, right?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a bit, and thanks so much for that. I think that's it's definitely a crucial point going forward as the digital nature is going to take up more and more of the balance sheet for companies. I think it's about what capabilities is it then that really makes sense, and others, whereas it makes sense to just leverage, things like cloud infrastructure at SAP, we have the RISE program and so on, right? There's going to be some strategic choices there, obviously. But on the other side of that, as you move forward, there's still an organization, right? There's still business processes. Yeah. And I think, obviously, we're talking about some big changes, right? And I'm really interested to know how this transformation process inside at Maersk, what's it been like? It's often challenging, right? How have you been tackling that that challenge?
Well, firstly, to reiterate some of the things I said to you earlier about our platform model, which is, I think, a key enabler for this. So formally within Maersk and indeed within a lot of companies, you have this situation where the business would come to IT, they say this is what we want you to do, and IT would then go away and either deliver it or find somebody else to deliver it.
Classic. Yeah.
And that was and it was all suboptimal. It was always seen as being, well, okay, is the business coming up with the requirements based on what they really need, or is it what they based on their previous history, or what's really driving it? So we have this platform model now, which and to describe it, basically the platform is, we have a technology aspect to the platform and we have a business aspect to the platform. Technology team reports in through technology within the organisation. The platform team reports generally into our platform portfolio organisation. Platform, the business side of the platform is made up entirely of people who've come from the business and are full-time deployed there. So you have again a capability which is there to facilitate transformation. And the way we work with the business now is different. I mean, the job of the business is to actually, sort of articulate to us, what they're trying to achieve in the way of outcomes, and what their pain points are, and sort of broadly speaking, their requirements and elaboration of requirements. And then the platform then takes it from there really, and comes and provides the the solutions and the way forward in terms of delivering those outcomes for the business. And it was it was very new to me, and it was very new to Maersk when I came on board 2 years ago. But I think we've quickly evolved, and actually in the platforms where we have which have become the most mature, then we have this great twin the box way of working between technology and the business side of the platform. Fantastic relationship with key stakeholders, which is absolutely vital to delivering the outcomes. And and obviously the key for us has also been working with a lot of the other platforms to kind of find the end-to-end integration that was needed for the business. But it's a very different way of working from that I've experienced previously. But I think it's highly beneficial compared to the older ways.
And I think it's interesting because when I look back at the development, at least in recent years, I think we've had, let's say, maybe the version 1.0 model, and then there was also, with the proliferation of more business-oriented cloud solutions, an area where let's call it shadow IT or business IT, kind of grew. And
Yes.
I think there was a realization that the lack of alignment, the hard work and the technical depth you were building in terms of the integration just became a Cartesian product of complexity, that when you really have to scale, and I guess with the operations that Maersk have, you really have to think like in a platform view. And then on the other hand, what you've done is merge that together with a strong link with your two-in-a-box model with the business side.
Yes.
So I think that's a very interesting way of thinking things about probably the right way going forward, especially when you're in the midst of that kind of transformation, right? And I'm also thinking, with increased digitization and intelligence now then becoming part of it, maybe more on a personal level. I guess there's also been some challenges there, right? Where it's been less and less of the classical way of calling someone, sending a quote, and more about processes maybe almost running themselves or more intelligent. Does that also pose some challenges in terms of
I
change
mean,
management?
I sense what you're alluding to is how have we kind of landed the change, and that's been it's been difficult. I mean, the soft stuff's always the hard stuff, right? And it's
Yes.
you know how it works, and it's been it still is a challenge for us because the shadow IT is still going on, and we're trying to remove it piece by piece, but it's still there. And I think some elements of the business have not really embraced the platform model, or possibly don't even really understand it fully yet, and the way that it's meant to operate. So actually getting this change to really take hold and get people to really think about because remember, it's not just about what the platform wants to do. It's not even what the business would say they want in the way of outcomes. We have to standardise. I mean, that is because the lack of standardisation is a major inhibitor for our business, and that's still very difficult to make our organisation understand that we don't need to be different. We don't need to be even the best in some cases, but we do need to be standard in the way we deliver our services, and and sometimes good enough is good enough in what we put in the business within processes, and again, if we adopt that attitude, then that makes us go faster still.
Yeah.
So that
allows you to line close also with the technology, I guess, because
exactly.
It doesn't need to be something new each time. It's easier to model a process digitally and then also improve on it.
Indeed.
Intelligent forecasts and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe to add some perspective here. I mean, change management is a big topic, and I think it's an art too. But we kind of alluded and talked about the speed of change. I think there is another dimension, and that's what you both just mentioned between the lines, which is that change is a constant state now, right?
Agreed.
You talked about business IT, and that's just there is now a new function because this change is just constantly with us. So we need to live it, and the attitude, the mindset needs to change, so we don't go into transformations with a revolutionary mindset. You see, we take a decision, we roll it for 10 years, we keep the lights on for another 10 to 15. It's about, this will be a continuous journey, this will be a constant state of change. And what do you see with a lot of company? They're overinvest, with a lot of successful companies on change management, they're overinvesting, right? Technology is the one thing, but it needs to be enabled by people who want to change, who are in that constant state of change, and who have that purpose behind them, right? That change is something good as you evolve into a faster and faster future.
Yeah. And talking about change, and something you mentioned earlier, Adrian, obviously knowing a bit about Maersk, the vision of decarbonizing the world's supply chains is something I understand is near and dear to the heart of Maersk. How can you do and leverage technology and scalable technology to really unlock also new sustainable value? I would be really fascinated to hear maybe your perspective on and the potential of this in the future.
Yeah, sure, yes, Baron. And look, I mean, I think I admitted to you previously that this isn't a particular area of expertise for me, but I do certainly have some opinions, and happy to share them. So you will have seen some of the announcements that various other leaders from within Maersk have made in the recent past about our move to decarbonisation, and and literally the most recent one about 30% of our ocean journeys will be fueled by sustainable fuels by 2030. Which puts us well ahead of where we originally intended to be, which is a huge change. And obviously, there's investments going on in fleets of electric trucks and other ways of decarbonising the business from business model. But one of the things I see in terms of technology, and it's been through my work in the platforms organisation, is that it was almost at one point in time every platform had some kind of ESG initiative. So everybody was looking at it from a slightly different angle, and I got involved with it from a procurement point of view, where we were talking about, well, how do we look at sustainability through our extended supply chain? And not just sustainability, but wider ESG type issues. And in actually evaluating this initiative, one of the things we said, well, why are we doing this on our own? Surely there's a more holistic Maersk view, and possibly even industry view in certain areas, because where we should be considering this as an enterprise initiative, not just a local platform or business initiative. Happily, what's happened there is that Maersk has decided to create a platform just focused on ESG, which will bring everything together under that banner. And I expect to see some great things from that team as we move forward. And that for me was really important. Let's try not to focus too much on the point solution. Point solutions are great if we can get them up and running quickly, and they bring some value, in a very short space of time. But let's think about this more holistically. How are we going to pull things together to get some real insights and deliver some real value back to the business and to our stakeholders.
And obviously making it much more strategic, I guess, right?
Yes.
Because you're really driving it, as you said. It's a massive changes towards 2030 you're looking into.
Yeah,
indeed.
And I think you mentioned something very important, right? It's not really only a company thing. It's not even only an industry thing. It's maybe even a cross-industry global economic thing, right? There's, if you look at our strategy, it's very simplified in 3 words, right? We want to help customers and enable them to record, report, and act on sustainability measures, right? So the top line and bottom line are now also considering the green line in between, and we will help our planet. But what that truly means is there is a need for more standards, right? And there is a need to communicate with your customers, with your suppliers, with everyone who's somehow involved in the supply chain, because it's a huge undertaking to kind of measure the carbon footprint across the supply chain. And that requires a lot of players to play in harmony, right? Yes. And I feel we're still very much at the beginning. Every big company has a huge responsibility, and there's also a lot of presence, so everybody's talking about it, right? But for me, it feels we're still very much in stage 1, which is kind of figuring out a good way how we can collaborate all over the globe on this to help our planet and record properly, right? So that you can take the right measures from there. If you want to be carbon neutral by 2040 with 700 vessels, right? It's a huge undertaking.
It is.
So time is racing, and just before we close out, we've been discussing some quite interesting things. I would love to just get maybe a quick word of advice around some of the critical success factors as enterprises are embarking on this transformational journey in the light of digital.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned some of them during the course of the conversation. So probably number 1 for me is the board level commitment and sponsorship to the transformation. If you don't have that, you don't get past first base, really. I'm really very fortunate in the programs that I'm responsible for to have 2 board level sponsors, Navneet Kapoor, who's our CTIO, and Patrick Jani, who's our group CFO. And they've both been fantastic in their support for us. They've let us get on with the job, but they've had our backs when we needed support, which has been brilliant. We couldn't have asked for more, really. So, and I see that level of board commitment in so many areas of Maersk's operations and the transformation that it's undoubtedly there. So that's a key plank for me. I think. Second on my list would be, and we've talked about it a number of times, is the pace of change and the velocity, which is really critical in driving transformation. It's absolutely fundamental for us to move at pace. We know that in our industry, whilst it may have been very traditional, it's fast moving now, and things are going to change. So it's quite often a lot of the new people that have joined us have said, well, what happens in 5 years' time when we finished all these programs and things like that? And it's going, well, actually, in 5 years' time, our industry, the world, is going to change, and I can't predict what it's going to be like, but I know that what we're going to be doing in terms of transformation and change it's a continuous journey, as you said, so that's fundamental, and obviously they're very interested in that because they're planning their future careers and wondering what the world would look like in Maersk in 5 years' time and beyond. I think beyond that, I think the way that we've approached our programs has been, and we talked about it not explicitly, but we've mentioned it a few times, is this kind of like whole process of standardization is so vital to us, and keep the core clean, be as vanilla as you possibly can. Don't be different if you don't need to be different, but let's focus on the things which really add value to our customers and to the business. And those have got to be the kind of guardrails that really govern what we do.
Good clear advice. Adrian, anything from you?
Yeah, I think it's very similar actually. I think the recipe for success and transformations for me is in 3 words, quite simple. It's technology, change, and people, and that in sequence and quite circular. What do I mean with that? Successful companies today, they leverage technology in a way that it's innovative, but also, as you say, scaling and robust, integrated, right?
Yes.
You need to look at the end-to-end process. It's great to do fancy things, but the fancy things also need to talk to the rest of the business, talk to the end-to-end process, and need to scale. If you do that, the next thing is that, the change mindset and that change is being communicated properly. People are agreeing and buying into the why they're doing this, right? And they're having purpose and understanding of leveraging the capabilities that the new technology is bringing. And then finally, the people side of things, that's the constant state. You talked about attitude, right? I called it mindset. And it's exactly what you just said. It's this constant change. We're not doing a project to, start to finish. The project will evolve, the goals will change, and it will probably just keep on going.
Exactly.
And the more we relate to that mindset, the better it is. And I think that's kind of the main goal to achieve for companies today, to make transformation, evolutionary, not revolutionary, right?
Yes.
Thanks for that. I think we really covered a lot of interesting aspects of digital finance transformation within today's talk, especially focusing around the world's largest transportation company, Maersk. We started out with a focus around the industry challenges and also some of the, let's say, archaic processes and the real need for change and business model change. And then we began focusing more around how could we leverage and what are the challenges of bringing in a more platform mindset, the business ownership two-in-a-box model. I really like that a lot, and how to overcome and work with the change management piece. And then, of course, before touching on the role of sustainability, also to engage people, I think, and have that purpose-driven in there. I loved your advice, right? So board level support, my personal favorite, keep the pace, and standardize, keep the core clean from you, and the circular nature of technology driving the change, and the change leveraging the people, and the people understanding the why, and that really going into a self-enforcing loop, I think are some really strong advice that hopefully our viewers can take with them today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paul, Adrian.
Thank you. My pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
And for you out there, be sure to follow and stay tuned for our next podcast coming up soon as we continue our journey together with leading European enterprises for an inside-out view on their changes, challenges, and pitfalls and learnings along the way. Until next time.